Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jackie. For today's video, I'm going to be going through every single book that I read in the year of 2024, and I'm also going to go through a few of the statistics. I have my Goodreads pulled up on my iPad right here. So first, I read 93 books in 2024 and 40,501 pages. Then we have the average book length that I read in 2024, and that was 435 pages. And my average rating overall for the entire year was 4.1 stars. I did have a few months where I just did not have a great reading month. Like, the books that I read, I didn't really like that much. Especially in December, that was terrible. I think it was 4 books I DNF'd, and I'm really hoping that I only have a very few amount of DNFs in 2025. The highest rated book on Goodreads that I read this year was The Nightingale, and it has an average of 4.63 stars. That is very high. I love that book. I gave it 5 stars. I definitely understand why this is highly rated, and it deserves all the stars. And so now let's go through all the books that I read. I think I'll just refer to my old reading journal because I do want to go in order. So this is my old journal. This is smaller than the one that I got for Christmas. I will make a video on my reading journal for 2025. I will do a flip through at some point, and I cannot wait to show you guys what that looks like. So the first book I read, I finished in 2 days. It was during New Year's, so I finished on January 1st, and that was A Court of Sugar and Spice by Rebecca F. Kenny. I don't remember that much about this, but it was very weird. I thought it was interesting. I liked it. It was okay, but I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. The second book I read was First Meet Fowl by Jacqueline Snow. I thought this was okay. It's a cute sports romance. I think this is a pretty nice palate cleanser. Then I read Wild Ever After by Rebecca Genshak. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. Not as much as the first one, which is Wildcat. I loved that book so much. I read it in 2023, and I don't remember that much about it, but I really liked it. It was really cute, and I think this is a really good hockey romance series. Then I read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. I read these all back to back, and I really enjoyed the series, especially the second one. It's the best one out of the series. The third book fell kind of flat for me. I think overall I would give this series like 4 stars, maybe 4.25. The first book I rated 3.5 stars. The Ballad of Never After I gave 4.5, almost 5 stars. I don't know why I didn't rate it 5 stars, but looking back on that now, I think I would change it to 5 stars. And then A Curse for True Love, which is the last one, did I give it 4 stars? I would honestly bump my rating down to like a 3.5, 3 maybe. Then I read Volume 5 of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I am obsessed with Heartstopper. I love the series so much. Nick and Charlie are like my children to me. These characters feel so real to me, and I love them so much. This whole series I would give 5 stars. Then I read and DNF'd Legendborn. I think the reason why I DNF'd it is because I didn't really like the way it was written. It is young adult, so I think that played a part in it. I just felt the writing was very juvenile, and it just wasn't for me. Then I read Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher, and I loved this book so much. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It wasn't really a 5-star feeling to me, but I still really enjoyed this book. Then I read Shadow and Bone, and I did not like this at all. I originally gave it 2.5 stars, but I think I would rate it like 1.5 or a 1 star. The next book I read was Twisted by Emily McIntyre. This is a part of the Never After series, and I enjoyed it. It was not my favorite though, but I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read A Kingdom of Stars and Shadows by Holly Renee. I really enjoyed this book. This was the only book in the series that I gave a very high rating. I don't really remember what happens, but I remember I really enjoyed it. Then I read House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. This was my most anticipated book of 2024, it felt flat for me. It's definitely because it was so hyped up and people just had very high expectations like I did. And because of that, I just did not enjoy it that much. I was expecting more to happen, like a lot of stuff was happening in this book, but I felt like there was something missing. And so I ended up giving it 4 stars. But the more I thought about it, I would honestly give it like 3.5, 3 stars, just because it did not really live up to my expectations. Then I read and DNF'd Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This book is overhyped. I did not like this at all. This was one of the worst books I ever read. Then I read Ace of Spades. I do not know how to pronounce this author's name, so I'm just gonna put it right here. I really enjoyed this book. At first, I thought it was a fantasy thriller, but it's just a YA thriller. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was very interesting and eye-opening, and I think everyone should read this book. I ended up rating it 4.5 stars. Then I read an ARC that I received. This was the only ARC that I was given, I think, and that was A Mermaid's Kiss by Ashley Bellow. I really enjoyed this book. I don't remember much about it, but it is basically about this mermaid, and it's a dark fantasy book. It kind of reminded me of The Little Mermaid, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver, and I gave this 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I had such a fun time reading this. Isn't this going to be turned into like a TV show or a movie? I'm really excited about that. I still have not read Leather and Lark, but I'm planning to read it maybe in February. Then I read and DNF'd Crossed by Emily McIntyre. I really wanted to like this book because I love the Never After series, but since I don't know that much about The Hunchback of Notre Dame, since it's a Hunchback retelling, I was not prepared for the priest trope. I had no idea that was going to be a part of it, and I did not like it. The way the male characters treated the FMC and talked about her, it made me sick to my stomach. I had to put it down. Then I read Dark Oz by Geneva Monroe. I gave this 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was okay. I don't really remember anything about this book, but as you can tell by the title, it is a Wizard of Oz retelling. Then I read Where's Molly by H.D. Carlton, and I really enjoyed this book. It was 5 stars for me. I cannot wait for her next book to come out. I believe it's called Phantom. I forget when it comes out. I think in February or March of this year. But as soon as I see that released on Kindle Unlimited, I'm immediately reading it. Then I read A Kingdom of Blood and Betrayal. This is the second book in the Kingdom of Stars and Shadows series by Holly Renee, and I did not really like this one. This series just really fell flat after the first book, and I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. I couldn't tell you what happened in this book. I think it was mostly just smut, and there wasn't that much plot to it. I was waiting for something to happen, but nothing happened until the end of the book, I think, and it really pissed me off. I think now I would rate it 1.5 stars. Then I read Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This is the first book in the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Flawless by Elsie Silver, and I really enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It didn't really give me that 5-star feeling, plus it wasn't my favorite of the series. Then I read Children of Fallen Gods. This is the second book in the War of Lost Hearts trilogy by Carissa Broadbent, and I gave this 3.5 stars. I don't really remember what happens in this book, but I ended up not really liking it as much as the first book. Then I read Ricochet. This is the second book in the Addicted series by Krista and Becca Ritchie, and I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was okay. I also don't really remember what happens in this book because it just wasn't as memorable as the other books in the series. Then I read and DNF'd The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I just did not really like how the story was playing out. I don't really remember anything that happens in this book because I DNF'd it. So then I continued the Addicted Calloway series. I read Addicted for Now, and I enjoyed this book so much. A lot of drama happens, and I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. This was one of my least favorite books by her. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Then I DNF'd another book, which was A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. I remember the writing was very beautiful and lyrical, but I just did not like how the story was progressing. I felt like nothing was happening, so I DNF'd it. Then I had another DNF. I don't know what happened in March, but it was not a great reading month. The book I DNF'd was The Jasad Heir by Sarah Hashem. I cannot tell you what happens in this book. I tried to push through it, but I just could not do it anymore because nothing was happening. And I believe there was supposed to be like trials, like some sort of competition, but that did not happen until like the very end of the book. I DNF'd it before it got to that point because I just could not deal with it any longer. Then I continued the Addicted Calloway series. I read Kiss the Sky, Hot House, Flower, Thrive, and Addicted After All back to back, and I think I gave all of them 5 stars. I gave Kiss the Sky 5 stars. That was one of my favorite books in the series. I loved it so much. Hot House, Flower, I gave 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it, but I honestly cannot root for Daisy and Reich because of the way their relationship ensued. I gave me the ick, honestly. Then Thrive, I gave 4 stars. This is basically Kiss the Sky, but from Lillian Lowe's point of view. I liked it. I only gave this 4 stars because it was a repeat of Kiss the Sky, and I still enjoyed it. I just did not really want to give it 5 stars, honestly. And then Addicted After All, I gave 5 stars. This was also one of my favorite books in this series. I cannot recommend this series enough. It is so good. I highly, highly recommend you read this. If you have not read this yet, go do yourself a favor and start it right now. It is 10 books long, but I promise you, you will not regret it. It is so freaking good. I love the found family trope in the series. It's just such a beautiful story, and I cannot stop thinking about these characters. Then I read the next 2 books in the Chestnut Spring series, Heartless and Powerless by Elsie Silver. I gave both of them 4.5 stars. I definitely liked Heartless more. That is one of my favorite books in the series so far. I still have not finished the series yet. I need to get on that, like, right away. Then I read the last 3 books in the Addicted series, Feel the Fire, Long Way Down, and Some Kind of Perfect. I will never shut up about the series. Feel the Fire, I gave 5 stars. This is probably like my second most favorite book in the series. It's just so good. Then Long Way Down, I gave 4.5 stars. Again, the only reason I did not give this book 5 stars was because of Daisy and Reich's relationship. And then Some Kind of Perfect, I gave 5 stars. This was the perfect ending to this series. It's basically an epilogue novel. I loved it so much. I think this one is my #1 favorite in the entire series. Then I read and DNF'd A Dance Towards Forever by Alison Root. I don't remember anything about this. Then I read Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World. This is the sequel to Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the World. And the first book I love so much. It is one of my favorite books of all time. Highly recommend it. But the second one, I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but it just did not give me that 5-star feeling. I didn't really love it as much as the first book. Then I read Bound by Treason by Eliza Tilton. I gave it 2 stars. I did not really like this book at all, and I cannot tell you a single thing that happens in this book. Then, for some reason, I decided to read A Kingdom of Venom and Vows, the 3rd book in the Kingdom of Stars and Shadows or something, whatever it's called. I gave it 3 stars. After I finished this book, I decided to not continue the series because I did not enjoy it at all. Then I read The Teacher by Frida McFadden. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, it gave me the heebie-jeebies. I felt sick reading this book because it was just disturbing as hell. Then I read another Frida book, which was The Coworker. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. It was okay. It just wasn't as memorable as the other books that I read. It was still entertaining, but I don't even remember what the character's name was. But one of the characters is like obsessed with turtles, and that's like her whole personality, and it was kind of weird. Then I read That Secret Something by Emily Wright. I really enjoyed this book. It's a spicy sapphic romance, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. Next, I read Dust Storm by Maggie Gates. I really enjoyed this book. If you like the Chestnut Springs series, I highly recommend you read this series. This was actually the only book I have read so far in this series. I don't even remember what it's called, but this is basically a single dad cowboy romance, and I enjoyed every second of this book. I gave it 4 stars. Then I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I loved this book so much. It was so good. I loved the writing and the storytelling. This is a beautiful story. I highly recommend it. I don't know why I didn't read it sooner, because I understand the hype. It's that good. I originally rated this 4 stars, but I think I bumped it up to a 5 on my Goodreads account because it deserves all the stars in the world. Then I read and DNF'd The Ritual by Chantal Tessier. I hated this book. Like, nothing was happening. It was just straight up smut, and it was very disturbing. I did not like this at all. Then I read Praise by Sarah Kate. I gave it 4.5 stars. This was my first age gap romance book that I read, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know what that says about me. It might be bad. I don't know, but I don't care. Then I read and DNF'd Beach Read by Emily Henry. I honestly might try to read this again because so many people adore this book and Emily Henry in general. So when I'm in the mood for a summary book, I will try to read this book again. Then I read The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee. I honestly don't know why I read this after I said that I wasn't going to continue her other series, but I ended up giving it 3 stars. At first, I liked it. It was okay. And then the ending just made me so incredibly angry. I wanted to throw my Kindle across the room. Then I decided to read the first 3 books in the Kindred's Curse Saga by Penn Cole. I read these all back to back, and this is one of my favorite fantasy series that I've read so far, and it is just so good. If you like Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, I highly recommend you read this. It has a very slow burn romance. I ate this series up. So for the first book, Spark of the Everflame, I gave 4.5 stars. For Glow of the Everflame and Heat of the Everflame, I gave 5 stars. Then I read Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Honestly, I would give this like 2 stars because I just did not like it at all. I don't know why I tried to continue this trilogy. Then I read Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. This is the second book in the Lakefront Billionaire series, and I loved this book so much. I gave it 4 stars. It didn't really give me that 5-star feeling, but this book was so good and such a good time. Then I made a mistake, and I read Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I should have read Mistborn first because I did not really enjoy this book because I didn't really grasp what was going on in this book, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. Then I read the first book in the Zodiac Academy series, The Awakening. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I really liked it. It was enjoyable, but the writing is not great, but the drama is so good. I ate it up. I'm in the middle of the 4th book right now, and I am so scared to see where the story goes because I've seen so many people cry their eyes out over this book and for the rest of the series, so wish me luck on that. Then I read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is one of my favorite books that I read in 2024. I gave it 4.5 stars. I would bump this up to a 5 stars because it was just so good. And the way Abby Jimenez writes her books, it goes so much deeper than romance. I just absolutely adored this story. And Justin in this book, I love that man so much. Then I read Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I was very surprised by this book because I thought I wouldn't enjoy it that much because it's so hyped up. But I actually really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It didn't really give me that 5-star feeling, but I think this was a great introduction to the characters and to the series. Next, I read Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. This book was so good. I ended up giving it 5 stars. The ending of this book destroyed me and had me spiraling, and I cannot wait to read the next book. I need it in my hands immediately. Then I read and DNF'd The House Witch by Delamhawk. I'm not sure how to pronounce this author's name, but I did not like this. It was just slow and it wasn't really going anywhere. I don't remember anything that happens, but I saw some people comparing this book to Legends and Lattes. I was excited for that, but then I was let down and I DNF'd it. Then I read The Ever King by L.J. Andrews. I enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I honestly don't remember anything that happens in this book, so I don't think I'm going to continue the series. I'm not sure, but I do remember really enjoying it. Then I read Obsession by Harley Beck. I gave this 2 stars. I did not like this book at all. I thought the premise of this book was interesting, but the plot twist was really disturbing and I did not like it. It was not for me. Then I read Riding the Headless Horseman by Molly Likovich. I gave it 3 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think this is a perfect book for Halloween, and if you're wanting to reach your reading goal, this is perfect because it's very short and it's only like 50 pages long. Then I read The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This is one of my favorite books that I read. I gave it 5 stars. It is so good. If you have not read it yet, I highly, highly recommend it, especially if you like dark, gothic fantasy. It has some horror aspects to it, but it's not as creepy as I thought it would be. But it is fantastic and I love the writing and the story. Then I read The Modern Girl's Guide to Magic by Lindsay Hall. I thought this was cute. I think this is a good palette cleanser and perfect to read around spooky season. I gave it 3 stars. Then I read The Grimrose Girls by Laura Pohl. I really wanted to like this book, but it was just okay. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, but I would lower it to like a 3, maybe 2.5 stars. It just wasn't for me. Then I read Play Long by Liz Tomford. This is also one of my favorite books that I read this year, and I love this book with my whole heart. I originally gave it 4.5 stars, but this is a 5-star book for me, and I just love these characters so much. I love the found family trope in this series, and everything that Liz Tomford writes, I will read. Then I read Bewitched by Laura Thalassa. This book was okay. I gave it 3.5 stars. I honestly would lower this one to like a 3. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I thought it would. Then I read Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This is also one of my favorite books that I read in 2024. I originally gave it 4.5 stars, but this is a 5-star read for me. It was so good. I love the story. I think it was just so wholesome, and the way the story was written was so beautiful. I thought I would not like the pregnancy trope, but the way this author wrote this trope into the book, it was perfect, and I couldn't ask for anything better. Then I read The Predator by Runix, and I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was okay. I don't know if I want to continue the series, but I feel like it is a bit overhyped, in my opinion. Then I read and DNF'd Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. I remember I just really wanted to read a nice, cozy fantasy that has witches, and I was reading this one, and it was just giving nothing. I thought it was very mid, and so I DNF'd it. Then I read Fall I Want by Lyra Parrish, and I was liking this book at first, but then like over halfway through, it just really fell off. The storyline just fell flat for me, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. Then I read Ruthless Fae. This is the second book in the Zodiac Academy series, and I gave it 4 stars. This was better than the first book, but it still didn't really give me that 5-star feeling, but I did really enjoy it. Next, I read The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden. I gave this 4 stars. It wasn't really a 5-star book for me, but I did like the first book, The Housemaid, more. Then I read The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. This one was also one of my favorite books that I read in 2024, and I enjoyed this book so much. I could not put my Kindle down. It was just so good, and the child in this book is psychotic, and I was eating it up. I gave it 4.5 stars. Then I read another book by Lucinda Berry, and that was When She Returned. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book, but I didn't realize that this was about a cult, and some of the aspects in this book really, really disturbed me. And so that's one of the reasons why I didn't give it 5. I wanted to give it 5 stars, but because of those disturbing aspects of the book, I gave it 4 stars. Then I read The Reckoning, the 3rd book in the Zodiac Academy series, and I gave it 4.5 stars. The ending of this book, I was just like, what the hell is happening? Then I read and DNF'd The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. I just didn't really like it. I did not like the insta-love trope, and the plot was like basically non-existent. Then I read my #1 favorite book of the entire year, and that was A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This book was so incredible. If I could go back and reread this for the first time again, I would do it in a heartbeat. It was so beautifully written, and I now need to read every book that this author has written. It was that incredible. Then I read another one of my favorite books of 2024, and that was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This book destroyed me and left me in pieces, and I just really enjoyed the story and the way it was written. Ever since I finished this book, I cannot stop thinking about it, and every time I think about it, I just want to cry. So I'm going to stop talking about it. Then I read 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was okay. I just had my expectations too high because I've seen so many people say that they love this book. It very much reminded me of Legally Blonde, but I just feel like it wasn't as memorable as I thought it would be. Then I read How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn, and I really enjoyed this book. I don't care how cheesy it was. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It didn't really give me that 5-star feeling, but this book is literally perfect to read during the Christmas time. It was so good and cute, and I ate it up. Then I read and DNF'd one of my most anticipated books of 2024, and that was The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. I was not expecting to dislike this book so much. I felt like I just lost the plot and it was going nowhere, and I'm very disappointed in myself that I did not like it. And then I read My December Darling by Lauren Asher. I gave this 4 stars. I thought this was really cute and a perfect Christmas novella. Next, I read Baggage Claim by Juliana Smith, and I did not like this book at all. I did not like the toxic relationship between the female main character's family and her sister is awful. I hated her for what she did. Why? Just why? I gave it 2 stars. Then I read and DNF'd When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I just did not really like this book that much, and I felt like the storyline just fell off towards the end of the book, and I felt like nothing was really progressing well. Then I read Bookshops and Bone Dust. I ended up soft DNFing this. I will try to come back to this book when I'm in the mood for a cozy fantasy. It just didn't give me the same cozy vibes as Legends and Lattes did. That was one of my favorite books that I read in 2023. And Bookshops and Bone Dust didn't really do it for me, but I think I will try to read it again at some point. Then I read Beartown by Frederick Bachman. This was the first book of his that I read, and I gave it 4.5 stars. I loved the story, and I was not expecting this book to take such an emotional turn. I was not prepared for what happened in this book, but I really enjoyed it. The only reason it wasn't an automatic 5 stars was because I had to get used to the writing. It was very different from what I'm used to, but I cannot wait to continue the series. I know it will emotionally destroy me because I've seen people say that the second book, which is Us Against You, I've seen people say that that book is just an emotional roller coaster, and I cannot wait to cry my eyes out. Next, I read and DNF'd Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake. I did not like this book at all. I hated the toxic relationship between the main characters. I was not rooting for them at all. I think they should have just like ignored each other and just like move on with their lives, because what was the point of trying to get back together? And then the last book I read in 2024 was Santa's Coming by Serena Pierre. I gave this 4 stars. I think this is a perfect book to read for the holidays, especially if you're looking for really short books to get to your reading goal. This is only like 64 pages, I think, and I really enjoyed this. I like how it wasn't just straight up smut, or else I wouldn't have finished it. But I thought this was a really nice story and I really enjoyed it. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around to the end of this video, thank you so much. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel and go ahead and like this video, and I will see you in my next video.